Good afternoon, all. Congratulations for those of you that have been watching all the way through. We have officially completed the Paleo Cardiologist. And so wanted to do a couple things because for many of you, it's important to pick the action step, to take the 2, 3, 4 things that you're going to do that are really going to cement this and make it a habit for you. So what I thought we'd do for the last 2 days here is just a summary. So we're going to summarize chapters 1 through 10 here. So for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about the book, The Paleo Cardiologist by Dr. Jack Wolfson. Still for this week, we have our books in. So if you're a current client, you can receive a complimentary book or post in the comments, and we will hold one for you until the shelter in place is completed. But to go through this here briefly, what I'd like you to really think about is what is the action step, or what are the things that you've changed or are going to change to really cement this into a better quality of health and life for you? Because if you've been to one of our seminars before, you've heard me say information without action is meaningless, or it's pointless, because you can have all the information in the world. You can know that it's better to eat a salad than to eat a Big Mac, but if you keep eating the Big Mac, everybody knows what happens. So let's go ahead and hit these chapters here. So chapter 1 talks about cholesterol is king. Cholesterol is something that your body naturally makes, and in many cases, it's good for you. It's necessary. It's a carrier of other nutrients throughout your body. And looking at cholesterol as a bad thing, or is my number bad and do I need a drug, is not necessarily looking at your body as a self-healing, self-regulating mechanism. So I'd really encourage you to remember, as you make the action steps, think about what is the root cause of the problem and how do I fix it and or prevent it. So chapter 2 goes on to really the types of cholesterol. Many people just know about the number, or HDL and LDL. Well, there are quite a few different types of LDL specifically, which is often thought of as the bad cholesterol, but yet the small particle LDL that's most commonly caused by high sugar and carbohydrate consumption is really the one that has the most negative effects in your body. So keep in mind that your cholesterol is not high, or your LDL is not high from the lack of a statin, but often from lifestyle things. And what surprises many people is it's not how much cholesterol you consume necessarily, but most commonly the amount of sugar and carbohydrates that link your body to be too inflamed, and your body actually produces that cholesterol to help with the fact that your body is being damaged from the poorer lifestyle choices that you're choosing. So look at it more deeply, ask your doctor when testing to look at it more deeply, and don't necessarily settle for the medication itself. On to chapter 3, talking about the keys to a paleo diet. And if we're going to be simplistic, the main things that are not paleo instructs you to avoid dairy, especially if it's not organic, grass-fed, free range, and raw, but essentially avoid dairy, avoid sugar, and avoid grains. The thing that is paleo is things with cholesterol in it. So paleo is very pro eating things like eggs, which is why it fits into the Paleo Cardiologist so well. Many people avoid egg yolks because of the cholesterol in there, but as Dr. Wolfson points out, that cholesterol, if your body consumes it in a healthy form, your liver will just make less of it. So eating eggs, and then also eating a higher healthy fat diet, and those things are in your book as well. Moving on to chapter 4, it really goes on to what we've done wrong as a society. Well, food is more prevalent, you could argue, than any other time in history. Your access to food, less people starving because of, at least from droughts and things like that. But the processing of foods, the allowing of chemicals, preservatives, food colorings, artificial sweeteners, these things that are either not foods or are toxic to the body has a very negative effect on your heart and heart disease, but really every other major disease out there. And so it really goes into depth on where we went wrong and why you should not eat processed foods at near the level that most people do. Going on to chapter 5, it says the title is One Nation Under Prozac. What it goes on to is really talk about things like anxiety, depression, stress, and how those things affect your heart, but also how they're influenced by what you consume, by how you sleep, by different things like that. And again, certain things that are alternatives, like getting more healthy omega-3s in your diet, cutting sugar, minimizing alcohol, minimizing certain toxicity, meditating, exercising. Some of these things can really be influenced, and do you necessarily need an antidepressant if you're not doing the things that help your mood stabilize? And so it goes into quite a bit about that. So I'd encourage you, if you're somebody that fights things like anxiety or depression or high stress lifestyle, or you're stressed because of the current situation, really reread that chapter and get some action steps out of it. On to chapter 6. This is when it really goes into what I would consider the one of the major transitions I'd love to see our country make, which is going into the lifestyle component versus the drug component. If you took one thing out of this chapter, I hope you took the statement, the number needed to treat. Number needed to treat means how many people have to take this drug for a period of time to save a life, to prevent a stroke, to prevent a heart attack. And I think you'll be surprised if you remember the numbers on how many aspirins you need to take to prevent a heart-related or stroke-related incident, how many statins you need to take to prevent even one heart attack, or high blood pressure pills, and how many, if it's 200 and 300 and 400 people to prevent one additional one, think how many people have low level or serious side effects to that situation. So number needed to treat is an important thing to ask your doctor, and it's important to realize that many drugs, that number is so high that it makes it questionable if you should really be taking it. Moving on to chapter 7, it talks about procedures, especially unnecessary procedures. So there's certain procedures, like when it talks about EKGs and things like that, are both cost effective, but also very beneficial. One thing that that chapter really notes that I think is important to understand is that when you have a certain procedure recommended, your doctor may be doing it based on the recommendations or the standard policies of the hospital, but the way that system is set up is, in some cases, the administrators have figured out the most effective way to make money, not necessarily the most effective treatment for you. And one of the examples he uses is the nuclear stress test, where you have a radioactive piece or a high amount of radiation put in or onto your body for a stress test that, in many cases, stress tests are when you walk on the treadmill, by the way, if you don't know what I mean. But so a regular stress test, which has no side effects, may give just as much information, but guess what? Insurance reimburses a whole lot higher if you can justify the nuclear stress test. But is that justification warranted for you versus the financial benefit of the hospital? One other one that I didn't talk about earlier in the book, but that it really makes a really good point in, is mammograms. High dose radiation, high false positive rates, may even cause cancer because of the radiation in there. And should people really be having those every year, every other year, even if their insurance pays for it? There may be a better frequency or a better option, and you can read more about that in chapter 7. Chapters 8 and 9 talk about toxicity. So you'll notice toxicity is a huge issue. And so if you're not detoxing, you may really be missing a key component of having your most beneficial health, having your hormones be balanced, having your best life possible. One of the things that it says or talks about is that, give or take, and this is an estimate, people at our current time come in contact with more toxins or chemicals in about 2 days than somebody 100 years ago came in contact with in their whole lifetime. And again, those are averages or estimations. But think about that. The difference is your body was built a long time ago. They say our genetics haven't changed or have changed very little, and yet we're coming in contact with so many more chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, food dyes, heavy metals, all this stuff. Now, a lot of those things, now, if you talk about heavy metals, they're released from like the burning of fossil fuels. They're polluted in the oceans, and now they're in certain fish. They're in immunizations. They're in dental fillings. There's a lot of spots. They're even in M&Ms, the hard shell in an M&M. So heavy metals, these toxic things need to be pulled out of your system, and your body does a good job of that. But if it's overloaded over a long enough period of time, you may need to really focus on detoxing, and ideally, of course, avoiding the things that cause it in the first place, which finishes our summary for today, which is chapter 10. The body does the right thing at the right time. If you started thinking about why your body does certain things, why does it increase inflammation? Even something as simple as, why do you throw up or have diarrhea? The reason you're going to throw up or have diarrhea is your body's trying to get stuff out that it doesn't want in there that potentially could kill you or harm you much worse if you didn't have that instance. Your body creates a fever to kill an infection by breaking a fever because you're worried about a seizure. Often is so radically counterproductive compared to what it should be. Really, you think about all these different things that go on, and we should trust our bodies that they're doing the right thing. Now, if it's doing the right thing, but it's still not a good thing, it means you have to get to the source, or maybe have someone help you, or a natural doctor help you heal better so that your body can function better. So I hope that was clear. I feel like I went in a circle there for a second. There's a couple of notes on here that I'm seeing live. Cindy, thanks for getting on every time. And Renee, air fresheners, again, are one of those things that are covered longer in the chapter, but just to touch on them, air fresheners with artificial scents are very toxic. You want to stick more to things like essential oils or just getting fresh air, but household air is much more toxic. So hope you enjoyed the book. We'll finish tomorrow with the last summary, and really encourage you to continue reading if you haven't finished it, to empower yourself and take those action steps to live your best health possible. Have a blessed day.